color on this one. A little problem with the focus here. I should be able to get this whole rose in focus because the depth shouldn't be that great on it. I don't know how little Able is.
It's a real mini.
So it's a mini, not a micro mini. I mean, not a Mayflower. But all the same, unless you take a camera without a smaller f-stop, you should be able to deal with that. So this is an irresistible, a very unusual irresistible. I don't know where they grow this quite this color. Someone's going to tell me.
Around here.
Do they get that much yellow in them?
Ours start with a little colors.
Yeah, it has.
We were just, but it wasn't. It's all out of focus on this side, anyhow. We criticized. We didn't knock it down for not being an irresistible because I don't know what it looks like here. But it did lose points because it's not in focus.
Question.
Yes, sir.
In terms of the photographic quality versus the showmanship quality, what percentage, or how do you weigh it?
You know what? If you looked at the schedule there, they gave us points. I don't think any of us ever read that.
But when you judge, okay, what
You know what I'm judging? And I told this to my fellow judges. When I look at a picture, and I'm picking out the last two or the last whatever it is, I'll say, do I want this hanging over my desk where I look at it 10 times a day? And if I have a choice between two at the end, I'd say, I want to look at this one. I don't want to look at a rose that's out of focus. I don't know what else. I don't know if I'm answering your question at all. Showmanship. Oh, am I looking for the best show rose?
Right, and that's and based on your comments, it almost seems like they might be equally weighted.
Well, it is a rose. It is a picture of roses, okay. And the more beautiful the rose is, often the more likely it is to be something that you would see get a ribbon in a show, okay. Because that's. I hope we're picking out beauty in rose shows. If we're not, then we're missing the whole boat. And the same thing would be true in photography. You have to have the beautiful rose to start with. And this one, I just don't think has that innate beauty.
And I understand that. So, okay.
I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I hate doing this. I really do. It's like I'm frying your children. I don't want to do that. But we had to make decisions. Let's go up here to bee's knees. The rose wasn't a particularly good rose overall, and then it was taken way too small. At least that was the consensus of those of us who had to deal with that. I'm not going to deal with Halo Sweetie. Ralph made a lot of good roses. This one just wasn't one of them. I mean, the rose might be, but this example of it, if you come up and look at the stamens and things, you'll see that this petal's out of focus. They were just little things. If you're taking singles, you don't have much to photograph. Try to get the whole thing in focus. And a lot of times, I spend a lot of time focusing in and out because you focus here, back to here, and you try to get it somewhere in between where you get everything sharp. If you can't, then you probably should take a picture of it.
Question on that focus thing. Now, you said you were using like a Canon 100 macro lens?
Yes.
And now I use like a 105 Nikon macro lens, and what I find is there seems to be, the only way I can get stuff to really, everything to be in focus is I have to get the F number to a large F number, but then you get in this kind of diffraction area where, yeah, I can get it, but then it's kind of loses.
I have never seen that, and people tell me, and I shoot routinely at f/29 to get the depth of field, and they said, well, you get at this diffraction. I have never seen that. Nikkor lenses must be bad. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I'm using the DX camera. I'm not using a full FX, so it's one and a half times the F number actually.
I've never run into that problem. I usually shoot anywhere between 25 and 32.
25 and 32.
I use the most depth of field that I can get out of my lens.
And you don't get any diffraction up at the
I have never seen it.
Okay.
And if I started running into problems, I'd be the first one to notice it, I think. So other people, I've read about this, and it's like, oftentimes you read about things, but I've never seen a picture of it. I sent this out to 100 people across the country, and no one responded. Everybody says that aphids cause leaf defoliation, leaf deformation, and bud deformation. I have yet to ever seen a picture of aphid damage on a rose, but everybody believes it happens. And if someone takes a picture of aphids on a rose causing damage, send it to me. It'll be the first time I've seen it. Baldo said, I'm sure I've got pictures of it, but I can't find it. I've got lots of aphids in my garden and no deformation, so I don't. And it's like the diffraction. I've heard about it. I've never seen a picture of what it's supposed to look like, so maybe I'm getting it, don't know it. We had 3 Dr. John Dickmans. They're all nice roses. We finally decided upon this one. And the reason this one, wherever the other one is, I was sort of in favor of this rose being the best in this class. My other 2 judges liked this one better. I didn't like this background color with this particular rose. Now the rose was excellent. The color's very good on it. John Dickman's a fun rose to shoot because you get that beautiful color on it. But you know, just little things. I like this background, but my fellow judges like this one. So a lot of times, again, we just have to make decisions.
What would you, with the background, you didn't like the background, but what, if you saw the rose, and what would you've used for the background, or what would you have done to try to get the kind of background?
Well, you know, if I look through my viewfinder and see something like that, you got a couple choices. One is, I'll go cut some foliage from somewhere else and stick it back there, depending upon where this was taken. I don't know what this is in the background. It sort of looks like a driveway or something.
Looks like a driveway.
I don't know. It's nothing in the environment unless it's dead grass, maybe. But just knowing it's an artificial kind of environment back there, I would try to change it. Either that or throw the black cloth behind it and make it black. Because I just found that distracting. So you've got your choice. And a lot of times I'm sticking foliage back behind things if I want the foliage background. Because you've got 2 choices, foliage or no foliage. If you got no foliage, there's got to be something back there. And if it's not black, then it's probably going to be something you don't want. So.
That photo almost looks like it's touched up with something, like a photo or something. I mean, when I look at the colors, it's almost...
Well, I've taken a lot of pictures of that, and that pretty much looks like just the way my pictures look with John Dickman. I'm not sure what you were saying. You don't think
almost looks fakey, almost.
The
like
colors?
It's so perfect that it's almost fakey looking.
The background, probably.
I mean, I'm talking about the peach.
the rose itself?
The rose looks
The color, yeah. Our Dickman doesn't look like that.
Maybe it's
Well, again,
Yes,
I don't know where this was grown. It says some here in California, Livermore. Mine are this dark where I live, and I like to photograph it because it is such a vibrant colored rose. So when I looked at that, I didn't see anything that made me think there was any aberration. However, there's nothing in the rules that says you can't do that, but it's like at a rose show, you can add things if you don't get caught. I mean, they always say you can't do these things, but in photography, the only thing that counts is right here. I do all sorts of things to my roses out in the garden. I groom them and do lots of things because the only thing that counts is when I hang the picture on the wall, what's it going to look like? I mean, I'll add petals to roses if there's a hole in it. And there's no rules that say, I'm creating a piece of artwork, you can't do that. You know. So when you see a rose that's almost perfect and it's got a little flaw, I try to fix it before I photograph it, rather than photographing it and then try to fix it in Photoshop or something, which I can't do because I just have never
Well, I just
messed around.
wondered if there was any rules again, with the Photoshop thing.
Well, like I said, I've never read. I've read Lynn Schaefer when she used to do this. No, you don't. You never said that. They said, currently we have one in the Northwest that says you can do anything you want to it in the garden before you shoot it, but photoshopping it is not allowed. Now, whether the people Photoshop them or not, you can't tell. So you have to wait for honesty to strike. And I always have worked on my pictures so much before I take them that very rarely does that come into play. Now, a lot of times I'll take pictures and there'll be a botrytis spot on one of the petals. And, you know, do I leave it with a botrytis spot on the petal or do I take it off? Those are real easy to get rid of. But I was accused by some from the ARS one time that my pictures were too perfect. And I said, it was a preacher, as a matter of fact. He said, only God doesn't make roses that perfect. And I said, he didn't spend any time looking for them, because I spend more time looking for perfect roses than I do shooting them. And if you look for them, you will find the beauty that I'm showing you in my pictures. So some people are they've got really odd ideas about what the world's about. Okay, in the shrub section, these are open blooms. There were several nice ones in here. Flawless, it's a little overexposed. The color in Flawless, it's got a lot more color than that. Backing that off a little bit would have made it really nice. This one, obviously we liked. It's got good symmetry. It's a little bit dark. It could have been brightened up just a little bit. It would have a little jump to it that it doesn't have right now. It has everything but that. If you go out and look at a rose in your garden, I hope they have more intensity than this picture shows.
What about the background?
All these little things.
You have green on one side and you've got this other gray.
Yeah, well, you know, obviously we had to overlook a few things because we got down to the end here. This one we determined was pretty much overexposed. It's lost a lot of its color. If you look at white roses, they're very difficult to get the petals into it because it's real easy to overexpose them just a little bit. If you overexpose them just a little bit, you lose the definition. And so it's dark reds and whites, some of those are really difficult. If you come up close and look at this one, it's a beautiful rose, but it's just a little bit overexposed, and you don't see the structure here. This one could have been kind of nice, but too many petaloids will mess up an open bloom rose. Now I know it's one of those things that, do you take them out or do you leave them in? If you're working on a beautiful picture, you probably take the petaloids out. The same way, just one piece here is sort of distracted from the overall look of the picture. Now, you know, I don't advocate taking roses like this and pulling out 10 petals on the inside so you have an open bloom. But if you have one petal that is not, you can tuck that under another petal or something. You didn't want to pull it out, or you can pull it out and make a much better picture. But this one was just a little bit old too. So we came down to that one as the best in this particular section. Oh well, these three were in here too. This one, again, we have this lighting problem. The sun was shining from over here. It's overexposed on this side and underexposed on that side. If you played with the lighting a little bit, shaded or something to get the overall color, it would have been a lot nicer picture. We like this one, except on an open bloom rose, symmetry becomes, to me at least, pretty important. And so it's kind of flat on the top, round on the bottom. The color's good, but if you look at it close, you'll see some flaws in the flower as well. It's Rhapsody in Blue. Very excellent job with the color and the printing. It just wasn't quite up to what that one was, and so we had to make a decision, and decisions are what they are.
Does the petaloids bother you now?
In this one, there aren't really any petaloids. Those are actually whole petals in there, but they've got stripes on them. And I would, this one, it's very rarely to get one that isn't.
I've got it without.
But yeah, and again, that's known as looking for that perfect rose as opposed to just shooting the first one you see. And if you do look at a lot of them, you'll see some now and then that don't have the stripes. But if I were shooting that, I would have pulled those out because I find that a distraction because it's a purple rose and I want you to see the purple rose. Okay, now we come to the free-for-all section,
Can you explain abstract to begin with for us?
You know what? I'd like to be able to do that. Over the years, My wife is very hard on me in this. I'll produce something. She goes, but that's not abstract. You can tell it's a rose. Okay. And I'm not sure. It says exactly what it says is non-objective or
Altered reality.
altered reality. And very rarely do amateurs come up with something that I think is fairly abstract and looks nice too. It's a difficult concept to deal with, and Mr. Marriott from the East Coast liked to do things with his computer, and he could do all sorts of weird things, and I never liked anything that he did because they come out like this, and you push color buttons on your computer and you can change the colors, but I don't know whether none of us are too enamored with just doing that. Like this one as well. It gets to the point where, yes, it's very abstract, but exactly what is it? You know. Even though I said you don't want to know it's a rose, but yet you want to know where it came from. Yeah. This one, I assume there's a spiral here of a rose, but it could have been anything. And I hate to be, you know, again, we had to judge these things. It wasn't easy. On this one, one of my co-judges said, it looks like they altered this rose and this rose to turn them in the picture somehow. I'm not sure what they really did do to this, that the photographer thought it was abstract. To me, it just looked like a spray of 4th of July. And I don't know why it was deemed abstract, except they said this rose looks like it's been altered some way. And I didn't see that when I was looking at it. So.
Question.
Sure.
You can get some great shots with morning dew on roses, but yet you wouldn't show them with dew on them, obviously. And I don't see hardly any roses that have morning dew on them.
I have one over there.
You know, I love water
Tahitian-
shots on
yeah,
roses,
Tahitian
but I will
sunset.
tell you, after 23 years of competing at the national level, the national judges hate to see water on roses. And I don't know why, because they make beautiful pictures.
Oh, they
But
do.
it's just like, thou shalt not have water on your roses. and so apparently all these people think that they're
The same
following
way, huh?
this idea that doesn't exist on paper, you know.
So if you were personally judging it, though, would you?
Probably not. I'm still judging for overall beauty of the particular picture.
But it's tough to beat some of those with morning dew on them.
You know, when I make my calendar, probably 4 of the 12 pictures have dew on them. Because I think it makes a beautiful picture. If I'm sending stuff to the ARS to compete in the contest, the dew stays home. Because, you know.
You gotta understand
But if you're
your
doing
eye.
it for you and you enjoy it, then absolutely shoot them. It's not about what she likes.
Yeah.
If you're shooting them and you're going to use them for you, you do what you like. Because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And I try to please everybody because I just do these things. But if you're doing odd things and you have creative effects, then some people are really going to like it and some people are not going to like it. But a beautiful rose is a beautiful rose, and when you're dealing with rose people, they usually can appreciate the beauty of the rose. But these things are a little strange. We didn't see where this was an abstraction, so it's sort of a rose picture out of focus. And this is that altered reality thing, because we know what color that rose would be. It would be pink. Well, you know, these aren't supposed to be right.
I know, it's.
So it got down to, weren't too enamored with any of them, but we did pick one out because we're not sure what they did to this one to get it to look that way. But it, you know, again, it's a contest, and we had to pick a winner. I'd like to. Over the years, I've done lots of weird things with abstracts. One of our judges really liked this sort of soft look of this rose, but I don't know if that's abstract or not either. Yeah. That's a picture of a rose that's slightly out of focus. So as a judge, I don't know what to do with these things either. I've seen lots of abstracts over the years that don't really, in my mind, qualify as being abstract. It's a very difficult concept to do that without doing something just like this, which is you go to your computer and you just do anything weird with it, and all of a sudden that's abstract. So I apologize to everybody who did those because we didn't know what to do with them. Okay, we had arrangements. There were only 3 entries. Now, to me, I'm not sure if the person misentered this class, because this looked like it would go in the abstract, but we couldn't alter what the enterer said. So as an arrangement, this sort of left us not really excited. We really like this Hogarth curve here as an arrangement. However, as a picture, it leaves a lot to be desired because it's so underexposed, you can't see the material, the container is missing. And despite the fact we liked it, there was no number 1 in here. If this is a mass arrangement, and those of you who do arrangements, which I happen to be arrangement judge, we're a little lacking in a mass arrangement there. Pretty flowers, pretty picture, but if we're doing arrangements, it just wasn't enough to get it. So we did not award a first in that particular category. The next one was bouquets. This one, again, we're sort of missing things that we think might have been in there. And then we had the 2 others, very pretty flowers. The picture was sharp. This one was nice too. Both running in there, but we decided that we like this as a bouquet of roses better than this one because the quality of the roses in this one was a little bit better. So again, bouquets are kind of a strange thing that you can deal with. Now the next one was rose gardens, and there's no pictures of a rose garden here. Sort of. There's 1 or 2, maybe. This is a nice picture of a spirea plant in the middle of something. So I'm going to be a little critical. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. This is a picture of a rose plant. This is not a rose garden. This is a picture of 2 birdhouses with a rose. Again, that's not exactly a rose garden. Same sort of, there's 1 plant here. This is a rose garden. However, the cement and this sort of dominates this picture. It takes away from the beauty of what might have been the garden. Now, this part might have been very nice if they got it in there, but we've got this as a garden, and we've got all this that is not, and so it just doesn't do much. This was an interesting one. It had to be taken somewhere down here. I mean, I recognize these hills and in the foreground, but what it wound up was just a little sort of strip of color between the hills and the foreground. If we'd gotten in on the garden a little bit, that might have been a garden shot. But as it stands, it loses something. Again, this is a nice picture of a granddaughter with 2 rose bushes. And again, I'm not trying to be anything other than I am. And I've always been known as I've got a lot of names that people call me. I guess we should leave those alone. But here's one that's almost a garden with a fountain.
Low here.
And even that one,
Just
we're
get
really
too
excited
low.
about, but we didn't award it the best in the class. So when you're taking a picture of a garden, sort of try to get some garden in. Whether they've got structures or something, but at least back up enough that you can tell that there's multiple plants and that you're actually in a rose garden rather than having one big plant. Sometimes, like the National say, rose plant or something like that. So you need to read the definitions of what they tell you before you enter, and the likelihood is if you know what the judges are looking for, you'll do better than if you don't. Okay, and this was a class, the last one was for anything that didn't fit anywhere else. Now, a lot of these have been punched with, yes, they were judged, okay? And some of them are very nice. However, the judges did not feel that this fit everything else because this is a very nice picture of an OGR. Actually, it's a species rose. However, the rules state that you can only enter 1 in a class. So I went to the judge and said, could we move this to the old garden rose class? Because it would have competed very well there. However, they said the entrant already had 1 in the old garden rose class. They wanted to put it in the show, so they put it here. So when you see some of these that look like very nice pictures, we just decided that they really didn't belong in the everywhere else class. They were second editions that people put in. They wanted in. I mean, we're not going to say you can't enter them, but they wouldn't really compete in this area. So there were 4 of them that I think that we marked that way, that they were judged. So this one and this one and this one. This is a nice abstract. I don't know. It looks like.
Yeah, it does.
Oh no, and I don't. And that was something we looked at. But again, it was probably a second abstract, maybe. And again, I don't know. But we didn't think that it was belonged here. So it's punched as judged, but no ribbon. The one over the end there was sort of a bouquet of, so then it became difficult at this point, knowing what we should do. We had three different bug pictures. Here's a hoverfly, and an unknown insect, and bees. And we had these rose hips. Now, I don't know if the photographers here that took these. This is a very nice picture, except for one small thing that you could have done to make it better. And that is this hip in the background here. It's got dead things hanging on. If you'd gone through there and taken that one out when you looked at it, you wouldn't have had a distraction from these beautiful 3 that were here. Just little things when you know. And there were some other dead things in there that we thought probably shouldn't have been there. We weren't sure whether it was an abstract or whether it was whatever. So it was punched as judged, but not in this class. So this was the one we finally picked out. It was these 2, and my 2 colleagues really liked this bug.
I thought you liked it too.
I don't know. I sort of lean towards the hips, but once my 2 colleagues said they liked this one, the judging was done, and I wouldn't go. In the American Rose Society, you put a bug into a picture of them, they just throw that out. They don't like bugs. And I've sent them some really neat looking bugs over the years, so I know that. Because I like taking, well, my Baldo says, I tell Baldo he's a would-be photographer, and Baldo says I'm a would-be bug guy. Because my other love in life is insects, and I spend a lot of time with them in the garden photographing and giving programs on insects. But so I'm really appreciative in insects, but most photographers aren't. And if you walk around the corner...
Quick question?
Sure.
On the double Bs there on the pink?
Yes.
What made that not as nice as the other one?
Well, it was just a decision, and I don't know. I asked the same sort of question when we were judging it. I thought the bees were kind of nice, but it's...
Maybe they're too predominant?
Well, like I said, sometimes when it comes down to judging, you just you have to make decisions about things. And I thought that was a really nice job of taking a picture of our vanishing species here. But that one won out. So I would say if 3 other people came in here and judged these, the bees might have won, you know, and
Or that one.
so you have to deal with
Or
me.
that one over there, yeah.
This we thought was just a picture of stamens, and now around the corner was the one, and I said if I had a lot of people that asked me how this won, I'd probably say my wife would probably really question my sanity. But there were a couple of them that Moonstone down there at the top was up here, and we put all the winners together on the board, and we looked at them. And one of the things that I've said this before tonight, I said if in my office there's 3 pictures across the front of my desk. They've all won Queen of Show for me at the national level. They're all beautiful pictures, and I've had them there for 15 years, and every day I look at them, they're beautiful. Okay. I never get tired of looking at them because they've sort of worn on me. And I said the one picture in here that I would put over my desk and not mind looking at every day was this one. And that's what makes it, to me, the best one in the show. And it had nice lighting qualities. I may have said something earlier that it was dark and light and dark, but in this one it works really well because it's not evenly lit. The background is not too dark. The green leaves are back there, but it was a beautiful picture. we took a lot of thought in going through all these, and our only hope is that, what my hope tonight is that if some of the things I said, the next time you go out to take pictures of roses in the garden, you think about some of these things and you produce something that makes you happier than something you did yesterday. I look back at the pictures I took in 1991 and I thought they were a really nice bunch of pictures. I don't show them to people anymore. Because in 23 years, I've gotten where my pictures I think are better. Now, they may or may not be, but I like them more. And it's really about you. If you go out and take pictures in your garden and you like them, then they are absolutely wonderful. If you put them in a national contest and you don't win, that's art. And I've been real fortunate over the years that I've always known what the judges like. See, they used to say I used to stick $50 bills on my slides. It's really hard to do that on digital. I can't handle that anymore. But we had a lot of time, a lot of fun with it. I've met a lot of great people across the country because I've gone out and given a lot of programs on photography. I hope I help people at least understand their cameras better somewhat, particularly with reds and whites, which are difficult. But it's a lot of fun. The Queen shows up on Wednesday every day in my garden. And I get to photograph her, and she stays with me the rest of the summer. So if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to talk to you.
What time of day do you think that was taken?
Yeah.
Probably morning, but I can't tell because this is the right color of pretty much for Sperry Shoop. It is that light, delicate pink.
She's
And-
right there, Esther.
Yeah, we'd like to take a picture of you with her and her.
Who?
I took it.
What time of day was it?
It was just before sunset. I was
Sunset.
facing south. The plant's on a west fence. It was probably.
You know what? If you take a good picture, those are you will never forget where you took it, where you took it.
Yes.
And it was just a point and shoot camera, like an HP.
But it's in good focus.
Yeah.
I mean, we looked at it critically, and
I might have had a macro push the button rose on it.
well,
No,
it's in
the
focus anyway.
flowers.
So it doesn't matter what you do, what camera you use, as long as you deal within the confines of the camera. I always push mine to the limit because I like that absolute sharpness that I get by the small f-stops. This one, a long time I taught, I'd go out and teach people about taking pictures, and the second slide on there was film. What film do you use? And about 8 years ago, I took that out. It still says film, but it says, who shoots with film anymore? And nobody raised their hand, so we don't talk about film. We talk about those little memory cards. So knowing that almost everybody's got one of these now, I bought one of these for my wife. I've got 12 Canon cameras, and I bought her a Nikon. Because it was on sale. And she was doing a lot of things with our Port Rosalie festival, and I wanted her to be able to take pictures while she went through. So I went out in the garden and spent a couple days using this to take pictures. And actually, once I learned what I could do with it, I couldn't tell the difference between this and my $2,000 Canon that I was shooting. Because there just isn't really any difference. If you're going, 8x10s or something like that. So these cameras, if you've got a reasonable lens on it, and I have a good friend, Mike Darcy, who was sending me these pictures of his kids to use in a presentation. And I said, Mike, there's something wrong with your pictures. And if you've got your camera phones out, you go ahead and look at it. You've got this little tiny lens up here where you probably put your finger occasionally.
It's dirty. It's dirty.
So it's good if you're going to shoot those to clean that little lens up every once in a while, because all of a sudden your pictures will degrade and you'll wonder why you're not getting as good pictures. I'm really remiss. I look at the lens, say it looks clean, it's good enough for me. But I was able to take, like I said, just as good pictures, but I couldn't get any closer than 8 inches, so I wasn't able to do really little roses with it. And I couldn't, when I tried to take something far away, the picture quality went really bad on it. So if you've got one, and mess around with it a little bit and see what the confines are that you can do, and then just live with it. Man's got to know his limitations, someone down here in California once said. So, and you've got to know your camera's limitations, or you'll shoot outside of it and you won't get good pictures. So, if there's any, yes,
So
sir.
are you setting your f-stops on most of the pictures you're shooting, or are you just relying on the automatic feature?
Oh, I set them. I set it to 27, 29, 31. Unless I want the background not to be sharp. I mean, when we talk about this, that's the only creative part of a camera you've got, that f-stop. If you use a really big f-stop, you can get a reasonably sharp picture, but everything in the background will be out of focus, including the pedals probably in the back and the front. Now, as you change the f-stop to a smaller and smaller one, everything becomes sharper and sharper, but you may, for reasons that you look at, you may not want the background in sharp focus. And so you can creatively change the f-stop on your camera to get what you want. Because if you can't change the background and you don't want it in your picture, of course nowadays you can Photoshop it out if you want to. But I learned photography back when all you guys did too, you know, before digital. You could do that sort of thing and get better pictures however you want them. So you do have this. There's only two controls on a modern camera. One is the f-stop and one is the shutter speed. And if your rose is standing still, the shutter speed doesn't matter. So the only thing that matters is the f-stop. So if you've got a tripod, it doesn't matter. But you can. Well, the shutter speed matters if you're holding it in your hand, I'll tell you that. But if you put it on a tripod, it doesn't matter. If your rose is standing still, and sometimes you have to chase roses around to get them to stand still, that works like. So any other questions? I'll stay here all night if anybody wants to talk to me. Okay, this, okay. Shall we get, if I had the other judges, here's the other, our third judge didn't want to be here because he was afraid.
He was here. He was here.
Don Wagner.
Don Myers.
Don Myers.
Where are we looking? I'm talking.
Okay, everybody look over here.
Oh, there's the bug man.
Yes.
I heard you talking about me.
Well, you're supposed to come up and identify this bug, Baldo.
Well, I heard something.
Yeah, I figured that.
Come and look at our bag.
So where's this bug?
It's right there on that photograph. Actually, no, it's.
That was great. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
I knew once we got you talking, you'd be
Oh,
fine.
you know, if people ask questions, if I don't have answers, I won't talk, but I usually do.
And so no flash.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Are you done yet? Would you please sign off now?
I got a question for you. What do you do about on white balance? Do you use something like an expo disc, or what do you do on digital to try to get the white balance right?
You know, my camera's got an automatic white balance on it, and I never mess with it.
Oh, you mean you just use the automatic white balance? Because I never can get the colors to quite. I started to use an expo disc, and I found that seemed to help quite a bit.
In your camera?
Well, it's a disc that you put in front, and it's an incident light. So incident light hits, it scatters in the field, and
I understand.
Yeah, so it's just it's basically it's in Watsonville. There's a company that sells them, and then a lot of the photographers are using them. I noticed.
If you're doing digital,
yeah, digital.
Photoshop
has a camera
aim it
raw.
at something that's supposed to be white, and it'll adjust everything, the colors.
But I don't like to have to post-process if it isn't necessary. Yeah.
I've relied on it because whatever I get is close enough to nature, and if I was 1 or 2 shades off in a rose, because they vary every day, there's no way in the world that you're going to know that. And the idea is to get beautiful pictures. So I always think about that. I've taken pictures at conventions, indoors under these kind of lights. That's when you can worry about light balance. Because it used to be with film, it really screwed it up. Digital, mine just sort of adjusts for it, I guess. I don't know. How does it? I'm not supposed to know. I'm just supposed to know, find the picture, push the shutter, you know.